fantasy friends, I'm Carrie Oehm from HotRoster today, and the first round of playoffs are in the books. Some of you might have been eliminated, and some of you might have been lucky enough to slide on to the next round. And so did the rest of the best teams in your league, making winning the championship all that much more challenging. And that's why every decision you make from here on out is very crucial. And to help you guys and gals out, I got some tips on which quarterbacks you should start and sit for Week 15. Well, in case you might have missed it, Washington's leading man, Kirk Cousins, has been kind of crushing it lately. Over the last 4 games, Cousins has recorded 90 fantasy points, the most of any quarterback over that stretch. And this week he faces the Panthers, which isn't a bad thing either. Carolina's pass D has allowed a multiple passing touchdowns in 3 of their last 4 games, something that Cousins has no problem achieving as of late. The Michigan State product has both recorded 2 or more touchdown passes and topped 250 yards passing in 5 of his last 6. The man is a stud in fantasy right now. He needs to be started if you got him, and I'd recommend picking up Cousins on HotRoster. Well, after a few weeks of subpar performances, Matt Ryan finally showed us Sunday why he is the number 2 quarterback in fantasy. The one they call Matty Ice roasted the Rams for 237 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, all without his best buddy Julio Jones. And I can't see Ryan going another week without Jones, let alone their other wide receiver, Mohamed Sanu. The return of these playmakers should only mean bigger and better things for Ryan when the Falcons host the 49ers. I mean, sure, the Niners have managed to shut down the legs of Matt Barkley and Bryce Petty over the last 2 weeks, but prior to that, they gave up nearly 3 touchdown passes a game, along with an average of 300 yards passing over 5 matchups. I say Matty Ice has a day. It's a no-brainer start for me this week. Definitely press down on him on HotRoster. Okay, so this has to be the week for Russell Wilson, right? I mean, his results against the Packers this past Sunday at Lambeau Field were beyond awful. You simply can't throw 5 interceptions and have a good game. But consider this, Wilson had only tossed 5 interceptions in 404 pass attempts prior to Week 14. And I just can't see it happening again, especially since the Seahawks are home to the Rams, in their first game without the recently fired Jeff Fisher. And to make matters worse, the Rams have gotten torched over the last 4 weeks, allowing 10 touchdown passes. So I think it's time for the real Russell Wilson to stand up, start him if you have him, and make sure you pick this guy on HotRoster. So speaking of bad, how about Drew Brees of the Saints? I mean, I never thought I would say this, but the future Hall of Famer just hasn't looked like himself over the past few weeks. Brees has thrown 0 touchdowns to 3 interceptions in consecutive games, something he's never done in his career before last Sunday. And this week, I'm a little concerned that Brees won't be able to turn it around. He faces the Cardinals on the road, and Arizona has allowed only 14 fantasy points to quarterbacks this season, which ranks the 4th fewest in the NFL. Plus, outside of the Superdome, Brees averages 6 less fantasy points per game, so given a tough matchup against the Cards, I'd bench Brees if you can and pick against him. Well, a player that's trending in the opposite direction of Brees is Matthew Stafford. He's been an MVP candidate this season, but this is where, as a fantasy owner, you might have to be careful because sometimes reality doesn't translate over the fantasy world. Take the Lions' 5-game winning streak. Obviously, part of that can be credited to Stafford, but in that same span, he's only averaged 16 fantasy points and has only totaled 20 once. This week, I'd expect more of the same from Stafford in the Big Apple against the Giants. New York hasn't allowed a single quarterback to reach 20 fantasy points all season. Stafford's also nursing a finger injury to his throwing hand that is likely to limit him. I'd likely sit him this week and press against him on HotRoster. Last but not least, the other quarterback in that Detroit-New York matchup is Eli Manning. And I'd also sit this guy. I mean, he did snap the Cowboys' 11-game winning streak, but he only totaled 5 fantasy points. And I don't see him doing any better against the Lions. But then I'll counter with the fact that they've only allowed 4 scores over the last 5 games, and they've nabbed 6 interceptions in that stretch as well. Plus, the Lions became the first team to keep Brees out of the end zone in New Orleans since 2009. So don't kid yourself, Eli Manning won't do it this week against Detroit, so make sure Manning rides the pine this week. And that's it for today, friends. Make sure to join us tomorrow when we explore the running back situation for Week 15. And for those of you who don't know what HotRoster is, go to HotRoster.com, check it out, download the app and give it a try. It's like no other fantasy game you've ever played. Then for some help winning the game, check out HotRoster today with Cam Stewart and Gary and Thorne every weekday at 4:30 Eastern, only on the Fantasy Sports Network. For HotRoster Now, I'm Carrie Oehm.